also engineer at Dataiku, and what that essentially means is helping our customers drive their data and analytics strategy using Dataiku DSS to achieve their objectives. This also entails actually using our flagship product to build some of the most pressing use cases or problems they're trying to solve in the industry. The topic I'm going to be talking about is around towards ethical AI. You guys have heard about ethics and transparency all day. It's more or less rehashing what the last presenter actually spoke about, but then we have to actually remember the fact that we have to include people at the center of AI when we're building one. It's really, really essential. I know, three main reasons people actually leverage AI is, the first one is to make money, right? You build this predictive algorithm, supervised learning to make money. The second one is to automate as much as possible to reduce your cost. And the third reason organizations build AI is actually to build new line of businesses, right? That's fine, right? You want to have a return on your investment, right? But making sure that the training data set you use to build this algorithm, it's really, really crucial that you make sure you prep it. You make sure that the people that are actually dealing with this data set are actually inclusive in your organization, right? How many of you guys, with a show of hands, realize that the surge we've had as a result of AI is as a result of supervised learning? What supervised learning, probably that would explain what I'm trying to get across here. Supervised learning is where you have a target in your historical data set, you build a mathematical formula on that data set, and you use that to predict the future, right? Am I likely to have a cancer, or am I likely to buy a product or not, right? I'm ensuring that the training data set is properly prepared, right? Making sure that it reflects the current situation, not the historical data set of 20 years ago, is very, very critical and very, very important. So a bit about I'm going to skip that. I've put up some cartoons here that say, well, just imagine this is your machine learning system. And the other person replied, yep, you pour the data into this big pile of linear algebra, collect the answer on the other side, right? You have your data set, chunk it into this formula, and then you get your result. The moral of the story is, what if the answers are wrong? What do? You tune the hyperparameters, making sure your objective functions goes in the right direction, right? Trying to tweak it and make sure you have high accuracy at the detriment of building a black box algorithm, right? You steer it, make sure it's right, and then you're like, this is outrageous. I'm just tweaking and there's no direction. This is a black box algorithm, without a good objective function for this model. Now, how many of you think this is the case in reality in the industry? With a show of hands. Be honest with yourself. Okay. How many of you think this is not the reality? Okay. So you fairly agree with me, right? Build a model. At the end of the day, you have a black box because you want a higher accuracy. You don't care about, the accuracy. I mean, you don't care about, how this model is generating the insight, but you just care about the accuracy, 99%. That's good enough for me, right? You just want return on investment. But I think it's important as human to start thinking critically about the reputation of your organization. Let's say, for example, in the past, right, places like Peckham in the UK, for example, has been known to be, stigmatized, like you can't, it's difficult, if you use your postal code, you go to the bank and they're like, okay, 20 years ago, you're from Peckham, this is not, you're from low income, and this is, you can't get a loan here, right? But then things have changed. How do we ensure that the training data set we use in building this algorithm reflects the current situation of our organizations? Why do we think this is the case, right? This is not new. In the past, you will be fine with building a decision tree, right? You build a decision tree, ahead, you can just use a tree. Can we go home now? Everybody is happy. Your job is done, right? But then, if you look at computer vision, for example, people are using things like deep neural network to forecast, right? Which could be complicated at the end of the day. So things are becoming complex. How do we make sure we justify that and actually put side by side human at the center of actually preparing this algorithm? So just because the harm isn't intentional, you have your training data set, you're honest data scientist, you want to build your algorithm, you want to fulfill your objective, fulfill your obligation for the company, at the end of it, doesn't make it any less real. There are a lot of biases going around. We all have blind spots. And we don't need to turn a blind eye to this blind spot, right? Just for example, imagine you're building an algorithm that is going to tell if someone is likely to have a loan or not at the end of the day. Does your training data set reflect the current status of today? Or are we using training data set that dates back to 30 years ago that doesn't reflect the reality, right? Just look at the headline for this paper. Mortgage algorithms perpetuate racist bias. This could lead to reputational damage for our organization, for example, or payment of fines. So where is the problem? Is it in the design node, the automation node, the API node, the DSS stack? Or is it our responsibility to justify this model or this algorithm we're building to reflect reality? So AI could worsen health disparity. If you look at the application of AI to healthcare, we all know that AI has been used to detect, for example, skin cancer. AI is being used to automate kidney transplant processes. AI is being used to detect early glaucoma in the eye, right? Those are use cases that are good in the healthcare sector. But there's a but to that. If you look at building a computer vision algorithm, the challenge is the algorithm doesn't detect light-skinned individual from darker-skinned individual. So if you're likely to have a melanoma, for example, this is not going to be detected. Can we rely on such algorithm to predict, for example, if someone is likely to have a skin cancer, for example? Another thing is, if you look at people that are likely to have an heart attack, people are using AI to detect that. And one of the challenges of that is, if you have high blood pressure, people say, well, there's a likelihood of you having a heart attack. Most of the training data set being generated is being generated on a small section of the people, which is not a representation of the population. How do we ensure that the training data set is not biased towards some ethnic minority, for example, to make sure the training data set is inclusive? So AI is sending people to jail. This says enough. I don't need to dig down into what that means. So wrongfully sending people to jail, wrongfully profiling people because of historical traits, right? I asked a question earlier, is the problem in the stack? Is it in the design, right? You have your data set, you do your data manipulation, you do it in the design node, you put it in batch, or you put it in real time, right? Is the problem in the stack? No, I don't think so, right? It's garbage in, garbage out. What you feed the system is going to be the reflection of the results you're going to get out of the system. If we carefully design our training data set to be all-inclusive, to be non-biased in the training data set, definitely you're going to have a reflection of that in your output at the end of the day. So if it's not in the stack, then where is the problem? We all have blind spots, like I said. You don't do this on an intentional basis. You just want to, gather your training data set, for example, as a data scientist and fulfill your obligations, right? And that's why we need to think carefully as an organization, where do we want to take this to? Do we want to have a reputational damage that actually reflects, an organization that doesn't care about their customer, for example? Or do we want to be a shining example to the industry that people can point a hand to and say, well, this is a fantastic organization that care or put human at the center of their AI initiative? So the less inclusive the group building the AI, the greater the risk for bias, right? If you don't include people in, actually gathering this data set, manipulating this data set, understanding the context this data set is going to be used, then we run into problem as an organization. How do we ensure that this is not a problem for our organization? By including a lot of people representative of the people you're going to use the algorithm for example. And the greater the risk for the bias, the greater the risk for harm, right? So humans building systems that actually justify human at the center, and then having an organization commitment, right? Make sure you make a commitment as an organization, putting human at the center of your AI objectives when you're building one, or your AI initiative. I know this is more or less a trendy topic now, and it requires urgent attention, because I've seen a lot of data scientists. Like I said, we all have blind spots. They don't do this on purpose. They get out the training data set, get external data set to augment their data set, making sure they have rich enough data set, and at the end of the day, they just make a prediction. They don't care about who gets segregated based on the algorithms they built or not. So making sure you test this algorithm against the extremes against the outliers, right? Stress test these algorithms to make sure sets a precedence for others in the organization to follow. It's really, really important. Lay an example. If you're in the C-level executive, make that an initiative, right? A lot of companies are being fined, actually, not adhering to the reality. So again, as a suggestion from inside your organization, think critically who knows about the business application, right? You might think, well, this is an algorithm I'm just going to use to detect if in a manufacturing line there's going to be a defective chip or not. Why do I need to care about, ethics? This is just about accuracy. Let's say you're in the business of mortgages. Who are you going to be discriminating against? So you need to think critically, who knows the business application this AI is going to be used for? Other question you might want to think about is, who knows the training data set, right? Who knows about the dimensions of this training data set? As a data scientist, is this a black box? Does it make sense to me, what I'm building? Do I know what comes out of this black box? How my prediction has been made? If I can't explain this to myself, how am I able to explain this to regulators at the end of the day, right? Another thing from outside your organization, think critically, who is the AI meant to serve? The people you're going to hurt in the process of building this AI. The people you're going to disappoint because you didn't stress test your algorithm effectively. So again, like I said, the problem is not in the stack. Actually, as a matter of fact, this platform is made for diverse skill sets, an all-inclusive platform, irrespective of your background, irrespective of your skill set. The minimum skill set you need to work on this platform is Excel, right? If you can manipulate Excel, you can work on Dataiku DSS. So which means if you're a business analyst, a data scientist, a data engineer, you can all collaborate on this platform without any problem to achieving your objective. So irrespective of if you're in the minority sector, or if you're in the high-end sector, you can all work together to understand where the bias sits in my data set, right? So it's important. You can collaborate on one single platform, going from a decentralized approach to a centralized approach where everybody is actually speaking the same language across the organization. So think about reputational risk. If this is not adhered to, what will be the problem if I'm actually not being cognizant of ethics AI, or being cognizant of the algorithms I'm building at the end of the day. Again, Amazon scrapped secret AI recruiting tool because it was discriminating against women. In the past, in the tech industry, a lot of women don't work in the industry, mostly guys, right? So the historical data set, by instance, is biased. So once you use that training data set to build an algorithm for recruitment, automatically it's going to discriminate against women. So they had to scrap the system, right? For a big organization like Amazon coming out boldly to say, this is the situation, it's shocking. But it's the fact, and it's something we have to be conversant with. Again, I don't need to go into details. Google make the same mistake as well, right? The big tech industries. So if we're building the future, we have a responsibility to build the right future. It's very, very important, guys. And we can only do that by bringing more people in the stack. Thank you very much, guys.